Verse 41 of Surah Al-Ahzab is a very key verse in bringing us closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and helping us to eliminate certain sins that we have in our lives. Many of us will have certain sins that we really struggle with. There are other sins that we may not struggle with so much, but certain sins that we might fall prey to over and over again. And one might wonder, how am I supposed to overcome this habit that I have or stay away from this sin? One of the ways that the Quran puts in front of us in verse 41 of Surah Al-Ahzab is to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Place yourself in a situation and in environments where you are remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with friends who remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the important thing is, a lot of times people will say, well, I've done that already. I try to remember God, but I still end up in the same position. I don't see any improvement. If you pay attention to the verse says you are to put yourself in situations where you remember God, except it has an added point at the end of the verse. The verse says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu udhkurullah, remember God, dhikran kathira. The verse of the Quran is saying, if you want it to take effect, what you need to do is you need to receive a high dosage of the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? So many of us, when it comes to Ramadan, we might wonder, why do we do these different a'mal, recite Quran, so on and so forth? Why? Why did the Ahlul Bayt encourage us to do this so much? Why did the Prophet encourage us to do this so much? Because yes, truly, at the end of the day, if someone does the bare minimum and they're fasting and they're praying, they should be in a good place. But if someone wants to remove bad habits from their lives, what they need is the remembrance of God, but not just normal remembrance of God. Normal remembrance of God, where every now and then, every 2 or 3 days, I open the Quran, or maybe once a week I might show up at the masjid. Once a week I might be spending time with friends who actually care about God. The Quran is saying that's not what we're really aiming for here. What we're aiming for is a high dosage of the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The type of remembrance where every day I'm reminded of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is one of the rare situations where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has used the word kathira. He's told you to do something very often. Typically, in the verses of the Quran, God will tell you to do things here or there, every now and then. But this is one of the only times in the verses of the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, remember me frequently. Now, that doesn't always mean a'mal. Sometimes it's as simple as just remembering God as you drive around the city, for example, maybe listening to some Quran, maybe having proper conversations with friends, or choosing friends who actually care about these things and actually prioritize the remembrance of God. His remembrance can come in a multitude of different ways. It might be a little dhikr that you say, for example, during the day. However you want to find your way, that's fine. The important thing is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, if you want this to work, you need a high dosage of it. A low dosage of it is not going to get it done. You need it in a constant manner and at a high dosage, and that will help for someone to remove some of those sins that they struggle with, inshallah, from their lives.